Going to be about 10.1, which is going to be about areas of 2D shape. A lot of this has been something that we have learned in the past, and we're just doing a quick review of it. So first of all, rectangle formula is A equals base times height. This is my base, this is my height. You're just multiplying the two sides together. Now triangle is going to be base times height, but it's going to be half of it. So we take the base, we take the height, we multiply them together, and then we divide it by 2, or you can just multiply it by 1/2. It will be the same. Now, a parallelogram has the exact same formula as a rectangle, just base times height. Now, one thing to keep in mind in a parallelogram here, this is my base, yes, but my height here is not this tilted line. My height here is how much the distance was from the base to the top, which is this part right here. This is my height. So do not take the tilted side as your height, because the answer will be wrong. Now let's look at the trapezoid. A trapezoid, the formula is 1/2 times base base 1 plus base 2 times it by the height. So what basically this is that you take base 1, you take base 2, you add them together, and then you multiply by the height. And again, remember, the height this time is not this tilted line right here, or this tilted line right here. The height right here is the distance from the bottom to the top, which is this is the height. So you take base 1 plus base 2, whatever the sum of that is, and then you multiply it by the height, then you divide it by 2. That will be our area of the trapezoid. Now let's look at the circle. Now the circle here, the formula is pi r squared. Pi is the number on the calculator that you have to click on, and then r squared is basically you just need doing the radius squared. Now one thing to remind you is that the radius is half of the circle's distance. It's not the whole thing. If you're giving all the way from here to here, that's the diameter, which is going to be double of the radius. Now, keeping those in mind, let's do some of these questions. So the first question, we do base times height because this is a rectangle. Because we know that is because, it has, 4 right angles. Or any parallelogram, we just use base times height. So let's go ahead and do this. So we do base times height. So if we do 8.7, my base times by my height, which is 11, your value here will be 95.7. Okay, and since the measurement is yard, I'll put yard. And since we're in 2D, we're going to put yard square. Next question, this is a triangle, so we need the formula A equals 1/2 times base times height. Now A equals 1/2, my base here of my triangle is going to be this one. It's going to be 10. My height here will be 4. So I do 4 times 10 and then times it by 1/2. My area here will be 20. Since the measurement is yard, I'll put yard square. Okay, next shape this time is going to be a parallelogram. So let's do base times height. Well, my base is here and my height is here. Okay, now let's go ahead and do this. So we do 4 times 2.8. Now if you go ahead and do this, 4 times 2.8, this will give you 11.2. And since we're measuring in mile, we're going to do mi squared. Okay, next shape right here is going to be a trapezoid. Now for trapezoid, we need to figure out both the measurement or the length of the top base and the bottom base. So let's have, we're just going to count it. So on top we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is 8. On the bottom we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is 5. So my base 1 plus my base 2 here will be a total length of 13 because 8 plus 5 will be 13. Now let me just plug in everything to my formula. My area is 1/2 times base 1 plus base 2 times my height. Well, 1/2 times 13, because my base 1 plus base 2 equals 13, times my height here. Well, let me count my height. Remember, your height is not this tilted side right here. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the distance of the top base to the bottom base. So just take it right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I just have to put in the calculator. So I do 5 times 13 divided by 2. My answer right here for my area will be 32.5. And since I'm not giving any measurements, I'll just, put units. Units as my measurement. And since I'm 2D, I'll have to put units squared. Next one, let's go to question E. Now this one we're doing base times height. But what you realize is that right here, you're missing one of the sides. You don't have, if you take this as a base, you don't have your height. If you if you take this as the height, you don't have the base. Anyways, you're missing one on the side. Now, how do we figure this out? Well, if you remember, if we have a right angle and we're trying to find the missing side here, given two sides already, you can use the pi diagram theorem, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now, the most important part is for you to find a c, which is the side that's right across my right angle. So this side, this time right here, my c is the 13, so I label this as a c, and I can label a as 5 and then b as the missing number. Now let me plug everything into my equation. So I have 5 squared plus b squared equals my c squared, which is 13 squared. 5 squared gives me 25 plus b squared equals, well, 13 times 13 gives me 169. Then minus 25 on both sides. This cancels. B squared ends up to be, well, 169 minus 25 gives us 144. This means my b here, this means to cancel out, if I cancel out the square on the b by doing square root on both sides, this will give me b equals 12 because the square root and squares cancels. So I now know that my b is 12. So let me go ahead and replace this with 12. Now I have my base and I have my height. Now I can figure out my area of the triangle. So I'm going to do A equals 1/2 base times height. Well, I know my base here will be 12 and my other height right here will be 5. So 5 times 12 times by 1/2, my value here will be 30. And since I'm not giving any unit measurement, I'm not giving any measurements here, I'm just going to put unit. It's going to be squared. Okay, this is very easy. It's just something for your, middle school. So now let's do the next one. Now this is a trapezoid. Now to do this one, we have to add up my base first. So I know my base 1 plus base 2 here will be 20 plus 36. Well, let me go and calculate it. 20 plus 36 equals 56. So I know base 1 plus base 2 equals 56. Now let me use my formula, which is 1/2 base 1 plus base 2 times my height. Well, I now plug in everything I have. 1/2 times 56 times my height right here, which is going to be 18. And now, when I plug this into the calculator, 18 times 56 divided by 2 here, this will give me my measurement or my area here as 504 feet square. And now, please remember, the reason I can take this 18 as my height is because this line right here is makes a right angle of my bases. This means this is this is the height because it's sending straight up. Now let's move on. Next one. Now the next ones here for G and H is a little bit complicated. You just have to break it down a little bit, but it's really not that hard. So as you can see on question G, it doesn't fit with any of the shapes that we are learning right here. So what we're going to do is that we're going to break it apart into shapes that we already know, which is the idea of composite figures. So let me go ahead and just draw, I'm just going to break it into shapes I know, but I'm going to try to make as fewer of shapes as I can because obviously I don't want to, do more extra work. So let me just break a shape right here. Now once I do this, on the left you see that I have a triangle. On the right here you see I have a square. Now on the right here, I see the square and I know my base is 8 and my height is 10. So I know using base times height, or 8 times 10, my area of my little, rectangle figure here will be 80. Now let's figure out my measurement or all the things I needed for the triangle. Now for the triangle, I don't really have the height here because the 18 here is the length of all the way from here to here. Now to figure out the length of just this triangle here, I need to take a look at this information right here, which is this 8. Now if I know all the way from here is 18, and I know from here to here is 8, then to figure out the length I needed, which is from here to here, I'll just do 18 minus 8, which means my base of my triangle right here will be 10. Now to figure out my height of the triangle, I know part of my height was this 4 right here. And to figure out this part right here, I realized that I have 10 right here. So my height of my triangle here will actually be 4 plus 10. And this means my height of my triangle will be 14. Then I'll just plug in everything into the formula for my triangle. So I know my triangle here will be 1/2 times 10 times 14. And this will give me 70 as my area for the triangle. Now, since I'm doing these two shapes together, if this is 70, this is 80, I just add it together, 70 plus 80, that'll give me 150 as my total area for my composite figure right here. Okay, moving on. Now it says, question 8, you're going to find the shaded area. Now to find the shaded area, let's first, see what we're trying to find. Now, on your workbook, it might not be, so confusing, but on this picture right here, you see a little bit shaded right here. Now, however, this is just, when we post the picture, it wasn't, the background wasn't completely black. But when it says the shaded area, it's asking for this, this color right here. This is what I'm looking for. This is the area that I'm looking for, not this one, okay? So this is the area that I'm looking for. Now, in order to figure this out, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to first figure out how much is everything within this rectangle, and then I will subtract this white rectangle away. That will give me the area of the shaded area. So let me go ahead and do my first step. Let me go ahead and take my base and my height of my whole, rectangle right here. So let me do 9 times 12. They will give me 108 as my area of the whole figure. Now, to only find the shaded area, I will have to subtract this little rectangle away from this. So, I will figure out my rectangle smaller, my small white rectangle's area. I'll just do 3 times 6, and this will give me 18. Now, all I have to do is that, I'm just going to do 108 minus 18, and my area of the shaded area will be 90, and it's going to be centimeter square. Okay? Now let's do a couple more. Now for question I here, it's just a triangle, so base times height divided by 2, or 1/2 times base times height. Well, let me go ahead and first find my base. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, this means my base here will be 5. Now let's find my height. Well, to find my height here, I need to find the height from the top of my triangle to the bottom of my triangle. So my height in this case, it will just be 1, 2, 3. So it will be 3. Now just plug in everything I know. Area equals 1/2 base times height, which in this case will be 1/2 times by 5 times 3. And my area here will be 7.5 units squared. And that's going to be my answer for this question. Okay, now let's do the next question. Now, in order to do this one, let's first find my base here. Would you realize that in this case, we can count it like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I have my base here as 6. Then I count my height. Well, from here to here, I can find my height, which is just 1. So I just do 1/2 times my 1 and times my 6, and my area here will just be 3. And it's going to be units square. Now, for questions K, we're now working with circles. Now, for circles here, remember in my formula here, that's pi r squared. Now, what you see here, all the way length for the 20 here is the diameter. I know diameter is going to be double of the radius. So to figure out the radius, I'll just take this diameter and divide it by 2. And this means my r on my radius here is only going to be 10. Then I'm going to plug in my formula. So my area equals pi r squared. Now in order to do this, I'm going to be plugging everything I have. I put pi and I put 10 squared. And when you plug this into the calculator, you have to use the calculator for this question. So you do 10 squared, which is 100, and then you times it by pi. This will give you your area here as 314 points, since it does not, I'm sorry. Actually, it says leaves in terms of pi. Now, when the question says leaves in terms of pi, you don't put it into the calculator. You just calculate 10 squared, that'll be 100, and then we put pi next to it. This is how we put it in terms of pi. Now, if it says actually solving it, then you have to look at what value it asks you to round for, and then you plug this into the calculator. Next one. So let's look at question I here. We're asking to round it to the nearest 10th place. Now, On this question, we're giving the r already, so let's just, plug in my formula. A equals pi r squared. A equals pi. R squared is 4 times 4, or 4 squared. Now, if we go and plug this into a calculator, it'll be 16 times pi, which this will give us a value of, let me see, rounding to the nearest 10, this will give me 50.3. And that's going to be the end of this video. Please ask me if you have any questions.